Now back to the show. This is The Law Show on CL 650.
Welcome back to The Law Show. And by the way, friends, if you have not yet seen Ted 2, you will discover when you do that there are actual words to the theme from Law and Order. It's Lakes White LLP. We're talking estates and planning and wills with John Lakes and John White of North Vancouver both. And we're talking wills and estates and estate planning. And one word, gentlemen, that's come up a number of times, and it's anyone who knows anything about wills will understand the connection of the word executor to the process. John White, what is an executor, and who gets to be one?
Well, the executor is, I like to think of the executor as the boss. The executor is the person who is named in the will, at least initially anyway, who is in charge of administering the estate.
Okay.
Every will is going to nominate at least one executor. Sometimes they nominate backup executors as well if the named executor dies or renounces, that is, doesn't want to do it and effectively quits. But the executor, I like to think of the executor as being in the driver's seat of the estate.
Does the executor always know whether he or she is going to be the executor, or do some people get surprised? Hey, you're the executor of your brother's will. Did you know that? It's first I've heard of it.
Well, I can only assume there must be some cases where executors are surprised to learn that they really are executors, but that is a bad idea. Being an executor is a lot of work. It's a hard job. You're directing lawyers. You're dealing with assets. And sometimes people don't appreciate just how much work it is, especially if the estate gets involved in litigation.
Right.
And so if you're going to name somebody in your will as an executor, ask them first.
Right. Have you, John, encountered people who've come to you? Well, I see I've been named as an executor. What does that mean, and what do I do? I would imagine estate planning lawyers like you frequently talk to people who've just discovered they've become executors.
Well, there are a few, not that many, but there are a few. Quite often when a friend's died and they've named them executor, and they feel like they're walking blindly.
Sure.
So the first thing is, when you appoint an executor, you got to appoint somebody who actually gives a damn.
Right.
And so quite often, I mean, typical husband-wife, let's say they name each other, and then if they have 2 kids, they'll name the 2 kids as a backup, and that's sort of a normal process. However,
is it desirable, John, to have a family member be the
Well,
executor, or would an arm's length third party be more effective?
Well, it depends. Normally, it's not an issue.
Okay.
I do a lot of estates, and normally it's family members, and even if it's a blended family, they might have a child from both marriages. Most families are able to work things out.
Okay.
However, there's issues. So, for example, if one of the executors lives in California, you may want to have that person resign. You may want to have to talk to an accountant because you want to avoid double taxation, because if you have somebody outside of BC as executor, it may change the jurisdiction.
Okay.
You may have somebody who's got some mental health issue, or somebody who wants to become an executor as a form of vendetta. You can't have that, because the executor has a duty to everybody in the will.
Mm-hmm. What happens, guys, if someone, suppose now you're sitting around having some beers with your pals after playing golf, and someone says, we've been friends for 30 years, and there's going to come a day when I'm not going to be available to play golf, and when that day comes, I'd like you to be the executor of my estate, and let's have another round of drinks, and you go, oh, sure, no problem. And then 6 months, 6 years later, out of the blue, your friend dies, and suddenly you're the executor of estate, something you agreed to over drinks 6 years ago, and you don't want to be. Can you decline?
You can decline as long as you haven't dealt with the assets of the estate. We just had one like this, similar to this right now, where the woman had no idea she'd been named as executor to quite a messy situation, and she just resigned right off the bat.
Okay.
But the problem is, if you've started to act as executor without actually being officially appointed, you might, and you start intermingling the assets of the estate, it may be too late.
Okay.
So you don't have to be executor if you don't want to. You can resign.
John White, if someone approaches me and asks me to be his or her executor, would it be a really smart thing on my part to call you and find out, okay, I've been asked, it's an honor. I think I would consider it an honor to be asked to be someone's executor, but I haven't a clue what's involved. Should I call a lawyer and find out whether it's something I want to accept or not?
It's never a bad idea to find out what you're getting into. It can be, depending on how complicated the estate is, a real labor of Hercules.
Right.
To be the executor of the estate, especially if it's not someone in your family and you don't know that person's family background or the family challenges, and every family has challenges.
Of course.
Or you don't know what their assets are. Never hurts to get some advice as to what you're getting into before you get into it. As John said, you can always decline or renounce, as we like to say, afterwards. But you got to be careful. That's the decision you need to make right at the beginning. Are you going to act as executor or aren't you?
And if I do renounce or decline the honor, and I'm the only one named in the guy's will, John Lakes, then what? Then who executes or who performs that role since I've declined?
Well, either the members of the family, the closest, who've got the closest rights, they can apply to be administrator with will and next. So you may end up getting the kids you don't even want to be the executors. But the problem is if there is nobody, like let's say it's your next door neighbor who is a widower who came from Eastern Europe, whose family was disrupted in World War II, and there's no relatives there, the public guardian trustee may take over and have to take over the estate.
Okay.
So, but if you're willing to be an executor or friend, you're saying, I'm willing to do that provided that I have all my eyes. So you set your conditions. So, for example, first of all, the person, you want to have it done professionally. Second of all, you want to know that person's life history. So you want to know if there's a brother or sister in Austria that you have to locate.
Right.
You need to know where their assets are. You need to know if they have a house. You need to know who the house insurance is with.
Mm-hmm.
You may need to know who gets the green teapot. And you just need to know, like, for example, if they do everything online, which is becoming more and more of an issue now, you need to be able to help to access the various bank accounts online. So if you're just going to say to your friend, I'm willing to do this, but I want all the facts too.
Right. And so it's to be appointed or to be asked to be someone's executor is actually, certainly it's an honor, it's a gesture of friendship, but it's a job. Well, and there's going to be some work ahead here, and you better be ready for that.
And you have to do an accounting, and you have to provide a trust. So, for example, maybe this person's main assets are going to go to a hospital or something. They'll want to know, all your fees and everything. Now, you're, as executor, entitled to charge a fee as well, which can be up to 5% of the value of the estate as well. So there's remuneration available to you. But there's quite a bit of responsibility, but I still think it's better to have somebody to do it than have a government agency.
John White, we're almost out of time here, but just to finish off our thoughts for the moment, at least on this executor, if you want someone specific to be your executor, and John Lake says, make sure that person knows about it, is it best to have a written agreement with that person? I would like you to be executor of my estate when I pass on. Do you accept, and would you indicate so by signing on this piece of paper?
I think that's probably
much?
Probably a bit much. You probably don't need that. The one place where you need to have their name in writing is the will.
Right.
And if it's there, then that's really the first step. And as long as they don't renounce, if they accept their position as executor, they're the executor.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to add, though, if you're appointing a trust company to act as your executor, they will have you enter into an agreement that sets out the fee, and it's usually forms part of the will.
And you'd want something like that with that kind of formal arrangement anyway, wouldn't you?
That's correct.
John Lakes and John White, we are fresh out of time, and my gosh, we just barely scratched the surface. We'll have to sit for a couple of weeks here and get you back in studio because, my gosh, there's an awful lot to talk about, but a very good first round talking about wills and estates and the multiplicity of details involved. Thank you both so much. We'll see you again shortly.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
John Lakes, John White, that is the Law Show for this morning. Red Robinson and the Diner next on CIL 650. Have a great day.